Europe for EXPCon Europe.
I get to see you there. I'm excited.
Well,
Toronto was a hit.
Toronto was amazing. 700 agents. The energy was amazing. We had a top team leader and individual mastermind. Shep Black made a guest appearance. Amazing keynote speakers. John Lee talked about how you can use technology to scale social, which was fascinating. And then we had the most decorated Canadian astronaut in history join us and talk about leaving the atmosphere and all that fun stuff. So it was a really cool experience, and obviously great content, breakouts, tactical stuff you could take home to implement in your market.
That's amazing. Well,
That's
congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
I was getting text messages from our fellow eXp Realty agents in Canada saying this is outstanding, some of which traveled all the way from British Columbia all the way over. So thank you for pouring into the eXp Canada agents. That's amazing.
Well, one really good compliment was there was a bunch of incognito non-EXP agents there that were checking us out, and a couple of them stopped me in the hallway just to tell me the energy is different, that it was very collaborative, that it was very tactical. They were sharing that their conferences were mostly kind of corporate-ish, or like, you know, more of check the box. We had a conference versus like, this is stuff I can implement in my market tomorrow. This is the problems we're experiencing in, you know, whether it's the US or Canada, low inventory rates, you know, true things that are on agents' minds every single day. And we were arming them with tactical how-tos and what to do's in today's environment.
Well, we keep telling people we just show them how we're different. We don't have to tell them. You can't tell anybody. They have to experience it. So I love hearing that feedback for sure.
And especially from folks that weren't part of EXP, but a bunch of them I think are going to be this week.
That's so amazing. Well, we'll be excited to welcome them to our family then. And we know that you're limited. We're so excited to have you for a little bit this morning. And thank you for taking the time. I know you are being pulled in 50 million different directions. So we're excited for you to share a little bit in the next, 30, 45 minutes with our EXP family. And Renee, let's just jump in.
I love it. Well, first of all, I speak for our EXP agents to say that we could not be more proud and excited, Leo, to have you as the CEO of EXP Realty. You have come on in a short but mighty way, making a splash that Elizabeth and I are going to dig into with you today. So I hope you're ready. And yet first, for those who may not know yet, EXP Family Tree. Elizabeth, let's take just a moment to talk a little bit about the origins of EXP Family Tree. And I want to give a nod to Elizabeth Riley, Hank Avink, Mitch Riback, and Rich Tomasini, who are 4 leaders at EXP Realty who created EXP Family Tree. Elizabeth, what is EXP Family Tree, and what's the origin that Leo and you and I are coming together today to talk about?
Oh my gosh, I am so proud of Family Tree for a number of reasons, because it's where your upline doesn't matter. And Leo, you've heard this, where our competitors in the outside of the EXP world are creating false narratives about silos, right? And how we don't really collaborate, we don't communicate, and we're only in our little circles. And Family Tree is one of those that just it blows that myth out of the water. We've got 10,000 agents from all lines, all organizations. We don't care what upline you're in. We don't care what city you're in. We don't care what country you're in. We don't really care even where you are in production. If you just want to build and grow and come together, we just thought that was a place to do it. And we have 10,000 people in there. So the 4 of us would mastermind on a regular basis, saying, okay, well, how are we leading? How can we lead differently? What can we do? And we're like, why are we all having these different conversations? Let's bring everybody together. So I really am proud of it, because it's not about your uplines. It doesn't matter. We are all one EXP. We're all pouring into each other, and we're winning together in a big way.
I'm excited. I love hearing that. I mean, I just said that the feedback from the folks that weren't part of the fold in Canada were saying was collaboration, right? And so especially with the folks I pour into with the top producers from a production standpoint, that's probably the most collaborative groups I see. So I think collaboration is something that is a give and pull, right? You have to contribute and be willing to contribute, and that's when most of the sharing comes back. So huge kudos to all of you guys who put this on. And I like the analogy that Glenn uses that I borrow now, is that between agents and staff, we're 90,000 people. That's bigger than the average United States, of America or Canada city, right? So
Yeah.
when you move to a new town, which I did recently a couple of years ago, there's parts of Miami or restaurants in Miami I still haven't found, right? Like sushi is some of my favorite food, and there's a restaurant that I had heard about for 3 years, and I'm like, how did I not try this before, right? So when you go somewhere new, a lot of it you have to have the kind of the desire also, right? Like I was talking to an agent the other day that was saying something about education and training. I'm like, do you know what is in university? Have you ever spent, let me connect you with this gentleman named Brian Ellington. And
Yeah.
she messaged back and she said, oh my God, this was all here. And I've been here for years and didn't know how much stuff is part of the ecosystem that's completely included, no additional fees, just, available to you.
Well, we're 90,000 agent, we're community builders, right? We're all in this community together. And when one wins, we all win. And that's the crazy thing. We have so many resources. I tell people all the time, it's wonderful to have all these tools on the tool shelf, and that I can pick and choose what I need depending on where I am in my career. But I would rather have too many options than not enough. And I think the way EXP has been built, we have more options that can fit any agent from newer agent to very, very, very seasoned. And if people show up and plug in, they're not going to fail in our ecosystem.
100%.
And we talk about the EXP Realty community. Leo, for a moment, I'd like us to envision the current EXP agents, the agents that are part of the EXP family. What's most important for our current agents to know about their company in 2024?
Well, funny you ask. It's what I've spent all day talking about to different folks, and in legal, in operations, in externally. I was on the phone with a C-level of a very recognizable company. We're about to experience the biggest shift the three of us have ever experienced in real estate, and it's coming fast and furious. And I'll tell you, I spend a disproportionate amount of my time making sure that we're operationally ready. Now August 17th was mid-July. And I'm gonna do an updated live if it hasn't been promoted on social. It's gonna be promoted today, this week. We're already almost ready to roll out our buyer agreement 2.0, meaning we've already iterated on the first one. We rolled out 14 days after the NAR settlement was announced. And the company I was talking to was, we were kind of going back and forth on philosophy, and what they said is, if every other company was behaving like you are, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
And I forget that, right? Like it's actually, vantage point and, point of view is such an important thing in communication, because a lot of times we approach things from like, well, so-and-so, and they're like, yeah, but not everybody else thinks or behaves like you. And Holly and other folks from our leadership team attended NAR last week. And one of the feedbacks, just like, Canada was collaboration, that we heard from brokers of all sizes is we're actually being leaders in this shift. We're the only company putting out paperwork, holding trainings, asking questions, being very proactive. Like my one thing that I want people to understand is we cannot be reactive. Because I said this on a call last week to somebody, I promise you that in September and October, you are going to be on the other side of an agent losing their mind at settlement when they make zero money, right? Because we're going through this shift where there's going to be listings on the MLS as the shift occurs that we're offering a unilateral offer of compensation, and then the others that had a zero. And somehow there's going to be an agent that wasn't paying attention to the deadlines and the details and what happens. And our agents who are well-trained and well-prepared, because we're rolling out new listing agreements as well that speak to where you need to educate the sellers and explain how this shift affects sellers. And then there's going to be people not getting paid, and they're going to be having a meltdown at the settlement. And then there's going to be agents not well equipped with the scripts and the presentations from a buyer, like not even before we get to a buyer representation agreement, which is a compensation agreement. I'm talking about the presentation where you articulate value, right? And I've landed on this in the last even 3 days, and we should probably say it. What the settlement does, it explodes the concept of procuring cause, which we were all raised on. That's why we have been lazy as buyers agents. because we were always protected by this concept that if I unlock that door, I can then document to my board or my association, and I can take someone to arbitration, and I'm owed the commission because through the lockbox log, I can show that I was the one who showed the property, right? That concept disappears. That needs to be, and what one of the things that was coming out of the NAR legislative conference is maybe the MLSs are going to be the enforcers, and they're going to want to see a signed buyer representation agreement prior to opening that door, or no one gets paid, right? So you guys asked me, what am I focused? I'm purely focused on being operationally prepared, right? I normally focus on operational excellence, but right now it's like, hey, this is a massive shift, and each state or MLS may enforce it differently, right? Because these settlements are somewhat vague in the sense of who's the enforcing body. What is the enforcement? Is it a fine? Is it suspension? Is it not getting paid, right? And so I don't know if most people know this, but there's 600 plus MLSs in the United States.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't feel like that because like 80 of them are about 85% of the agent count, but that long tail who we serve, it's very relevant, right? And so my singular focus for the remainder of the year is making sure we're prepared, that we're equipped, that we're ready. And not only because I want to make sure we survive and thrive, but I'm telling you guys that there is going to be a lot of people who are not prepared. And you, when you're on the side of these transactions, make sure that you're equipped to educate the other agent, and also let them know if they need to find a new home, we're prepared and we're ready to take them home.
That's one of the things I'm most proud of is, and I've always been, but to really see our leadership come together, stand up, and leading the charge. To your point, we're having conversations with people in the industry, and they are scared to death because they don't understand what's going on. Their brokers and their companies don't understand. And even I was talking to the CEO of our board the other day, and they're more prepared than most of the MLSs, and they were so much in alignment with us because they said, we see EXP, we see what y'all are doing, y'all represented well at the conference, and you're leading by example and setting the standard. And so that's how we've always been, and I love that we're continuing that trend, and we're grateful for the leadership.
Yeah, no,
Leadership.
it's one of those moments where we have to, right? Because the industry needs us.
Yeah.
Leadership is showing up, right? And you see some leadership digging head in the sand for, in other brokerages. And that's a part of when we said we're so proud, right? You're leading that front, Leo. We see it. It's noticeable. And as agents, we're grateful. You said recently that what you're in the middle of today makes you stronger tomorrow. And so another question Elizabeth and I are curious about is if we think about the agents who are at other brokerages who are maybe considering making a move to EXP, why EXP, why now? And could we please address the whole thing about you're too late, right?
Oh,
This
yeah.
narrative. Can we just unpack that one?
Yeah, so first of all, I think that more than ever, it matters that your company has a sustainable business model. Right. So there's a lot of bootleg competitors. There's like 23 of them last time I counted them all up, who said, hey, look, this is the way that, we improved upon the model. But a lot of them are doing it at the sacrifice of profitability, right, and sustainability. So being early in something that shuts its doors down in the middle of the night is not a good thing either. And any company that's a startup goes through startup headaches and scale problems. And where, one of my favorite books is by Malcolm Gladwell and Outliers. And it talks about right place, right time, or things you can't control. And, Glenn came up with the concept and was a pioneer and went through all the growing pains. But what that's delivered us is at a crucial time in our industry is we have a fully scaled, operationally excellent, mature business in the sense that we can pivot and we can invest and we can do what we're doing through this transition in the market, but we're doing it sustainably. We're doing it in a way that keeps us in a profitable, sustainable plan. Because what happens when businesses don't have that, they have two choices. They could either go out of business, which is probably not what most of them would do. They would just dramatically pivot and change their value proposition. And I can't make the guess of what that is, but there's only so many levers. So either you increase fees, which is splits, caps, transactional fees, or you dramatically adjust the incentive program. So just I would always encourage people that, you know, all things that shine aren't silver and gold, and to just ask math questions. And the advantage of public companies is that it's public, right? I'd be more wary of the ones you can't actually see audited financials, right? Because one thing is someone giving you a piece of paper, but was it verified by a, you know, a reputable accounting firm that can speak to that? And then I answered the last question first, because that one was the one that was top of mind. But too late is probably I did a interview with Brian Carruthers, which I'm going to be posting to our workplace and a couple other places. And I actually just spent some time with him in Virginia, and he said, when I joined the company I was at, which is a direct selling company, they were 25 years old. And the reason I picked them over a newer one is because they are sustainable and scalable. When you are investing in a business that relies on a third party, us, to back their promise, you're actually making a very big commitment. It's different than starting an independent, you know, startup where you and only you are kind of responsible for your success. And when you partner with us or a company that has a model like us, you're putting a lot of trust that if you invest 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years of your life, energy and effort, that one day it's not going to say, sorry, it didn't work, and close the doors. And if someone were to research the statistics on MLM or any direct selling model, they're equally or greater failure rates than in traditional entrepreneurship, right? So with Brian Carruthers, and so I'm answering it with the way he answered it for me, was I did not want to invest my time and energy into something untested, right? Ground floor opportunity is another way of saying unverified and unvalidated, right? What you get here is the validation of the model works. And we have so many examples of folks who've been with us 12, 13, 14, 15 months, who are now crossing 500, 600 people in their organizations, because they're focused on their messaging and what they're doing. And so, and then I also want to remind folks that we're only 75,000 people in the US and 87,000 across the world. Of the total addressable market of agents, we're in the single percentages, right? We're the single brokerage on the planet, but the next goal is single largest brand, right? Like we have so much 4 or 5x the size in one country, let alone the world, of what the opportunity lies. And again, I think we have the largest growth opportunity in front of us since COVID, with the amount of change coming, right? And I'm not excited about a change. I'm reacting to the new rules of engagement, which is all I can ever do in life, right? I think life is 10% what happens and 90% how you choose to react to it. So, you know, I've given other talks where people said, I disagree with the settlement. And I said, I do too, but I don't have a choice in it. So I can now choose to understand the rules, choose that I still want to serve families in moving, because that's the business that we're in. And if the answer is yes, that I still want to serve families, I'm not going to operate with the new rules of engagement. And I think there's going to be a whole lot of agents who are going to need a new place to do that at. I think there's going to be a lot of small to mid-sized companies who are going to choose not to want to have the liability anymore. And it's going to look a couple of different ways. And I'm saying this I'm talking to a lot of small to mid-sized brokerages who are saying, hey, I'm going to fold shop and either fold into you guys or just not have the liability anymore, right? Because I think I don't think that, any one of these settlements will be the last of them, right? I think there's going to be years and years of new information and new things that come out. And I think there's just smaller shops who are going to want to consolidate into scaled, sustainable business models.
It's interesting. I love your perspective of the growth and the opportunity now, because when I came on board 9 years ago, the challenges that we experienced growing and building, they were painful, but they were very, very different challenges than what's going on now for those copycat models or those other models that are coming onto the scene. They don't have the challenges we had before is nobody knew what we were doing and nobody had ever heard of a cloud-based brokerage, right? but Glenn had thought all this out, and we went through all the growing pains and we figured it out, and we were able to pivot at times where it wasn't going to negatively impact the agents, but we didn't have all these challenges that we are all facing now. So I think for us, to your point, we're sustainable, we're proven, we've done these things. And I love Brian Carruthers saying, I joined a company that was 25 years old because they had already gone through the growing pains. I think these newer companies are going to go through growing pains just like we did, but they're going to have significant growing pains that we didn't have to experience because the rules were different. So I love where we are. I love the opportunity. I think it's easier now to build and grow at our company. I mean, we didn't have Revenos or luxury or commercial or any of those other things that you have been so, involved in building, and all the relationships. And I think it's a no-brainer because we're already set with that relocation, all of these other opportunities. You're like, oh, and then there's this. And so everybody can fit into our model, even though all of their business goals and strategies are different.
Well, the way I describe it, because I get asked all the time, like, what's EXP in one sentence or in an elevator pitch? And I say, we have a platform that allows real estate entrepreneurs to build whatever size dream they want. And operationally, what that translates is I serve multiple avatars, right?
Yeah.
I'm well known to be very close to the top producers because I was one. That's the language I speak. But we're just as an amazing company and fit for the agent that chooses to sell townhomes. And whether it's full-time or part-time, my goal is operational excellence, meaning I onboard you smoothly. I pay you the day of settlement through a protocol we spent the last 18 months on. We were in a beta with the FDIC on this bank protocol that, very quietly, all of a sudden you get the money almost the day of settlement magically, right? I would say that was priority number one. And the second one was real-time rev share, which we didn't even tell you it was coming until it was real, right? I came from software, and there's a term in software called vaporware, which I see, startups in general, whether it's tech or real estate, say coming, we're building, this is coming. I more like to say, log in and check it out. It's not live, right? Like, I like betas where, maybe there's a specific group of agents where we test things on, but you normally don't hear from me until I post it on social and say, hey, log in and click this button, because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen when you roll it out at scale. And so we test thoroughly, but then that's what a mature business does, right? Versus saying, hey, I'm building this, I'm building that, it's coming soon. There's a little asterisk at the bottom, not all markets applicable, right? Like there's a lot of the things that I see and gets pitched to me. My first question to become a solution or a partner for us is, does it work in all 50 states? And if the answer is yes, does it work in Canada? Does it work in other countries, right? Like, I will never actually bring on a product that only works in a region of the US, because it's not largest concentration of our agents are in the US. But like, if it doesn't work, if it only works in the Southwest or just Texas or California, like, I'm not going to roll that out at the corporate level. You can work with whomever you want. We don't tell you how to run your business, but if I'm going to integrate it into our workflow, it's got to work everywhere. Like, the button has to pop up to say, would you like X? The back end has to be scaled, sustainable, right? The decision I encourage agents to go through when vetting where to hang their license is the same one I put our vendors through, right? Like, if a startup is pitching us an idea, I start asking them questions that make them very uncomfortable, like, who's on your cap table? Who owns your company? Are you profitable? How much cash do you have in the bank? What does your run rate look like? Because the last thing I want to do is onboard a product or service and you guys love it and it runs out of money in 6 months, and then we have a bad experience. So I actually ask, what I'm encouraging agents to do their due diligence before choosing their brokerage is the same process I put through potential products or service vendors for us.
What?
That's such wise guidance too, if we think about it, that the more questions we're asking in advance, then you're making solid decisions that are sustainable, right? And I love that thought for us all as agents to remember that as we're making decisions as to who we're aligning with, the same thought process. You hinted a little bit about RevShare 2.0. So thinking about RevShare 2.0, first of all, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, Elizabeth? I mean, really, thank you.
The stories that are coming out of that just alone, Leo? Or, I mean, wasn't it $1 million paid out the first day it launched? And
Yeah,
some of
it was
these
in like
families,
8 hours.
yeah,
So
and these,
there's a couple of things with RevShare 2.0. One is a reimagination of to making sure we still have the best value proposition. And the one you're referencing, Elizabeth, was real-time RevShare. So I'll address them separately.
yeah,
One, well, real-time RevShare was the one I was very excited about because it was a very heavy tech build, but it was the concept that basically the second a transaction disperses and that money has been allocated into RevShare, you could see what was coming in your next payment. And just the simple explanation is if there is more than $1 in that account, you can now hit a button, and the reason why $1, because that's all, like, we basically made it whatever the cost to send the money. We made it basically a clean pass through to you guys, is all it takes, and you can unlock that money. And again, when we turned it on and we sent the email, I want to say in the first hour is like 300 grand went out. And by the end of the day, it was like $1 million. And now it's, tens of millions of dollars have gone out. But to me, the beauty is, look, if I can help you make a car payment, a mortgage payment, because we are living through a very tough market. And I actually start most conversations by saying that to people. 2023 was 4 million transactions, which is like a 25-year low, lower than 2008, right?
yeah,
And 2024 is on track to be just as bad as 2023. So we're in this weird place where like the economy feels healthy in a way, but our world, real estate, we're in a transactional recession, right? Prices aren't dropping, low inventory, so it doesn't feel like what we all imagine when I say the word real estate recession, but rates are historically high and transaction count is historically low, which makes what we do for a living much harder. And so I always got to, I'm sure you've all heard me say that my favorite word in the English language is context, right? So you've got to remember that it's tough on everybody. And actually, I think that's where a lot of the folks who are chasing shiny objects, they're experiencing pain. And so they think, well, if I go somewhere else, it'll be better. Not having the context to say it's tough for everybody. It doesn't matter where you are right now. There's just
yeah,
less transactions, and there's no silver bullets, right? So for real-time RevShare was of the concept like, hey, if I can help you guys, even if it's a couple $100, it's meaningful to everybody. And I don't want to play that down, right? Like some folks could say, it's only a couple $100 helps right now, right?
yeah,
Everything's up, groceries, gas, everything's up. So if I could pay you faster, by the way, that's like my number one mantra, like, how do I pay the commissions faster? How do I get your money into your hands with as little friction as possible is the goal. And then going to RevShare 2.0, I think one of the cool things about being a scaled enterprise, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, we are a category creator. We are the category king. Glenn Sanford invented the cloud-based brokerage. And one of the things when you see a scaled category king, Amazon, Meta, Netflix, is you have the ability and the right that when you see something created by somebody else and say, hey, that's really cool, we can buy it, rent it, acquire it, copy it, right?
copy and paste, yeah.
And we have the right to do that, just like other companies copied our entire business model. If I see a feature that's interesting, I'm going to say, okay, is that interesting? Should we do it? Should we not do it? And we have the ability to do that. So RevShare 2.0 was, again, completely driven by Glenn, as he was the creator of the original model, but the thought process in his head, hey, let's make this sustainable for another decade or two. How do we make this just as amazing of an opportunity for the next generation of agents who want to become, Elizabeth and Renee, who have just as fair of an opportunity and as big of an opportunity as possible. So I think through a very collaborative feedback loop of agents of all sizes. And I think that's the really cool takeaway. This wasn't designed for the top earners in any way, shape, or form. This was in mind with the more, statistically average agent from both a production or rev share, where the opportunity was just as amazing for them. And to your comment, Elizabeth, the feedback has been amazing. So It was not easy. It was a very long kind of feedback loop. We crunched numbers so many different ways and tens of millions of iterations of possible, unintended consequences. Like if we do this, then that doesn't work. If we do that, that doesn't work. So I will tell you that the amount of permutations of math I saw in the last 6 months was mind-boggling, but I'm pretty excited with what we landed on, and I'm more excited by the feedback we're getting.
Well, and it speaks again to the leadership, because you're not just saying, okay, we'll do this and see what works. You were taking into account, because I was behind the scenes seeing a lot of, the conversations that were going on, not just me, but a number of us, and how long this was going on, because you guys were running every different scenario to make sure that everyone was taken care of and that you didn't, leave any stone unturned. And I think sometimes people will just do the easy button, say, okay, this will affect a number of people in a positive way. Let's just do this. It'll make some people happy. And you guys were really focused on how do we make the majority of people successful in this new model and this new iteration, and not only for now, but beyond. And so again, it speaks to leadership and
you
how
use the
y'all
word
handled it.
majority, because there were some folks that was probably not as beneficial for, but those folks actually were the ones who said, hey, but in the long term, I see the advantage for everybody, and that actually makes the business sustainable and defendable and scalable.
I was one of those people. I was like, yeah. So I get it, but again, when you own something, and we all own this company, you think about it and you approach conversations differently, right? It's no longer about the one, it's about the many. And that's why EXP makes me so proud, because when one wins, we all win together. And so you have to make different choices and tough choices. And I don't really think it was tough choices, because this company is going to be here for the long haul. And we're going to cascade and benefit so many, because we're just getting started.
Absolutely.
Elizabeth and I were on a call shortly after it was announced, and one of the amazing parts that we had the ability to do, Elizabeth, remember, we were like, oh, that will help this agent, and this will help that agent. And she and I were going through and thinking of all the agents in our world and thinking, wow, goosebumps. It was thought RevShare 2.0 and all the new benefits that are rolling out in this company are not for one type of avatar. It is literally the company of eXp Realty saying, there's no box. You don't have to fit in a single box to have a home here. You're thinking about all the different avatars, which is smart. And again, we're grateful. So let's talk about misconceptions, Leo. What's one of the misconceptions about eXp Realty that needs to be cleared up once and for all?
The one I say the loudest, that all we do is recruit, we don't sell houses. We sell the most houses. So in 2023, we ranked #1 in transactional volume, unit count, by 355,000 transactions, which is roughly 40% more than #2. And when you get down to like #4, I think we were 100%, and like 5 or 6, it's like 6x. Right?
That's significant, Leo, what you just said, and you kind of quickly glossed over that. 40% more than #2 in one of the worst markets since 2008, right? And why are we doing that? Because our agents are trained, they're thinking differently, they're serving their clients at a high level, and we have all the resources and tools to support whatever that looks like. That is significant. 40% is not a quick number to gloss over.
No, and again, in the Pareto's law of 80-20, our top 250 teams sold north of 69,000 homes. That would have made them the 6th largest brokerage in the United States by transaction count. So it can't be said enough. We sell the most homes, and more importantly, at the average price point, right? Because we're not #1 in volume. We're #2 or 3, which, if you take our average price point, we are serving the average American family, right? So we're not focused on uber luxury or anything of that nature. We have phenomenal luxury agents who have some amazing record-setting prices, but at scale, we serve the most American families,
everyday person,
which I'm very proud of. Especially with all this legislation and NAR and commissions, I do remind everybody at the end of the day, it's like, first, take a deep breath. This too shall pass. But secondly, at the end of the day, what we do professionally is serve families in the largest decision they make in their lifetime. And so with the new information, if you choose to do that next year, that's still what you do. You're serving American families, doing the hardest, most expensive, most, scary financially and long-term commitment, then they make this choice 3 times on average, right? They rent a couple times, they do this, they buy their starter home, their move-up home, and then their downsize home. And we get to be the Sherpa that guides them through this process, which I don't take lightly at all.
Love it. Love it. Well, I know you only have a few more minutes with us, so a couple questions. Are you good with that?
Sure.
Yeah,
Shoot.
yeah. Okay. So EXP provides many superpowers for agents. What do you think is your favorite EXP Realty superpower?
Honestly, the collaboration, which is
Yeah.
funny because I think our competitors think that's our weakness, but I think it's the dead opposite. And again, my vantage point is I get to be in relationship with the top producers and attractors. And by the way, for everyone listening who thinks that's all I spend my time with, that's on you to reach out to me because I do make time for everybody, and I take
That's
it
true.
very, very seriously. But it's the folks that actually take the time, and I discovered that kind of reality about humanity in my early 20s, which is if you actually make an effort and get into relationship with people, they reciprocate. But the amount of times that somebody says, "Hey, I want to do this," and I'm like, "Hey, meet Renee or Elizabeth," or
Yeah.
fill in the blank, expert who has that. That's actually my favorite part, which is where there's the amount of times someone says, "Hey, Leo, I want to do probate, I want to do REO, I want to do fill in the blank, I want to do, second home loan," I'd like talk to this person, talk to that
You're a
person.
connector.
Well, that's the connection that's available in that company. So you
Yeah.
asked me you didn't ask me my superpower, you asked me EXP superpower.
The companies. No, that's right.
And people join people, and companies are just collections of people. And so the superpower is the humans that are here, and that's at every level, both the agents, the teams, the attractors, and the staff, and that's our superpower, right? Like, I'm extremely proud of the talented sales professionals we have, but I'm also proud that our leadership team is comprised of probably the most real estate centric practitioners, right? Like,
Right.
our C-suite is chock full of folks that actually sold homes, which is kind of crazy that that's novel, but we're the only company that I know of that's led by one. And it previously led by one in Glenn. And then just, SVPs on down, most of us sold homes, and not like I tried it out for a weekend and got a job. Like, we did it to feed our families for many, many, many years.
Yeah, you excelled in those areas. Well, collaboration, I think, is super key as well. And I know we're in alignment on that. And for me, culture is super valuable. And I think, again, you have these false narratives being created from people that don't know our culture and don't experience our culture. And when we were first starting this company, we were smaller. I mean, culture is easier to create when you're smaller, and it's harder to keep as you grow. I think we've done a phenomenal job, again, because of our collaboration, because we're all one, we're all together. How do you see that continuing moving forward as we grow and scale? How do you think we can all collectively help promote the culture and keep the culture as valued as it is?
So that's a great question. And I had this conversation earlier today with someone, and I borrow what I heard Glenn say, which is the beauty of the model, right? Glenn created an experiment in distributed leadership, right? So folks that came from other organizations, corporate or franchised, right? You have these models where there's different folks that own a region, an office, a territory, or you're completely corporate owned, and then you have these folks in the field who are, regional managers, owners, all that kind of stuff. Glenn decided to, instead of having that corporate bloat, he invests in those folks that choose to add the attraction business leg to their income, right? And again, it's not for everybody. And I always almost start with that should be the cherry on top to come to EXP, not the reason to be here. I want you here because we're the most operationally excellent real estate company on the planet. We onboarded you the smoothest, we pay you the fastest, we answer your questions the fastest. We are the best brokerage as the foundation. But then
We are where the pros go to grow.
100%. But with that comes the responsibility of owning the culture, right? Because we don't have these intricate layers of regional folks in the field, territory directors, like, again, fill in the company name, they all have different structures. We actually partner with you guys to do that. And that's where you have these amazing cultures that have been created. So I think part of it is explaining it's not a feature. I mean, it's in software, you say it's a feature, not a bug, right? When some people say, well, it doesn't work, it's like actually it was designed to work that way, right? So I think part of it is for the folks joining the organization is to actually understand that that's our DNA. So once you're here, the way the culture works is because we all pour into the cup, right? Like, so it's not just take, it's give.
Right.
You when you join have to take the ownership of saying, hey, I'm going to be part of leadership, right? I don't need a corporate paycheck or title. I'm choosing to be a leader in my market, whatever that means to me. That is teaching a newer agent how to fill a form, or creating a mastermind where you do best practices for fill in the blank, or attending one put on by somebody else, and you just share best practices based on your skill set. So, it also depends on what part of the journey you're on. Are you still learning, or you're able to teach now?
Yeah.
On that
Leadership
too,
isn't a
'cause-
box, it's not a checkbox, right? Everybody is a leader in their own way. And that's what makes it so unique and people coming together. And I love that answer. I love that answer.
An EXP family tree is another great example of that fact. It's agents coming together to pour into the cup. It's not a group of people coming together to take from. When you go in the EXP family tree, it's people contributing authentic collaboration and trainings and just giving of their time, because you know what happens after that? Amazing things cascade out. They also come back to you. So
Well, and not
it's
only that, what's great too, Renee, is we can see all of us that are involved in the company, we see the different leaders that don't even recognize what they're doing is leadership. They don't recognize what they're doing is unique, and they're succeeding in different ways. And so those of us that can recognize that, we can pull them up alongside of us, and alongside, because it's not fun to be at the top by yourself on an island, or on a mountain by yourself, right? And so we've got all these agents that are newer. I mean, there's some newer agents that are doing things that I'm learning from every single day. I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. Come in and teach that. And so it's just lifting others as we all climb. And it's showing them that leadership's not checking a box.
Absolutely.
Well, we have one last question for you, Leo. It's a doozy. I think you got it though. What's next for EXP Realty?
Yeah, so I get this one a lot. Step one is making sure we're prepared for the shift. I don't want to underemphasize it, because I think a lot of other folks are taking the ostrich method of just sticking their head in the sand and as hoping it goes well.
Yeah.
And I would say, mission critical is making sure that we're prepared. I'd rather be over prepared and have it be like a speed bump than a hole, between two on a bridge that we can't get across. So
Right.
all hands on deck, all focus on preparing you guys from a buyer presentation to articulating a value proposition to having how many versions of a buyer representation agreement we may ultimately end up having, right? I said it earlier, but we're about ready to roll out 2.0, right? And so being prepared for the shift, continuing to focus on operational excellence, and then the next goal. So I'm going to start saying it out loud, because that's how stuff is created. We became the single largest brokerage on the planet. The next goal is I want to become the single largest brand on the planet. So that
Love
there
it.
are many other brands much bigger than ours. We achieved the first big number one. The next one is to become the largest brand on the planet. But I think that's strictly done through continuing to be operationally excellent, being in collaboration with the smartest, brightest minds in our industry, solving the number one question in mind, which is serving families, making these very large decisions.
Well, we are so grateful for your leadership. We're grateful for everything you bring to the table. We know we're going to get there because of you and everybody else that we're surrounded by. And we're just grateful, and you guys make us EXP Realty proud. So thank you.
Well, I don't want any credit, because like you guys are the leaders in the field. You guys are the ones that sell homes. I'm just here to make sure that it all works with a P&L and operationally.
Well, we're all locking arms with great people. So it makes us feel really good where we are. So
We appreciate you, Leo, and thank you. An extra shout out for all of the staff members In addition to leadership, you got to give a shout out to the EXP staff members
Oh,
at the
absolutely.
state level, at every level. We feel massive, massive improvement and support. I've been here almost 8 years, Leo, and thank you. It is, we feel it, we see it, and we are here for it. So as a shareholder, as an agent, just thank you.
No,
Thanks,
that's
Elizabeth
the
Riley.
number one priority. That's the number one priority.
Love it. Well, Leo, we appreciate you. We know you are a busy guy and in high demand. So thank you for taking the time to pour into our agents. And we're always here to support anytime you need it. So we'd love to have you back, but we're excited to be where the pros go to grow. So thank you for leading the charge.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.